Okay, so now our video on working with matrices and performing operations. So let's remember that we were working with the data set that we called oil data. So I'll just go ahead and read that back into R. I'm going to define it as an object called oil data. And it was a .txt file, so I'm going to use read.table, file.choose, header equals true, and choose the oil data where I have it saved on my computer. Now this data set is so small, I can type the name of my object and view the whole data set on the screen all at once because it's a very small data set. And I'm just checking to make sure that it read in correctly and it looks very good. However, most of the data sets that we'll be working with are quite large and you won't want to take up your whole workspace with the data set. And so what I'll do usually is just take a look at the first 5 rows. So if I want to do that, I can type the name of the object with a square bracket, and I'm going to do, remember in R, rows always come first and columns come second. So if I just want to look at rows 1 through 5 and all columns, I'll do 1:5 to tell it rows 1 through 5, and then the comma lets me identify some columns that I want to view, but I don't want to specify the columns. I want to see all columns. So I'm not going to specify any, and I'm just going to close my square bracket. So this line of code is saying, show me the first 5 rows and all the columns of the oil data set. And if I do that, notice that it only shows the first 5 rows. It still gives me my column names because it's recognizing that as that header line. Another way that you can just view the beginning of a matrix is to use the head function. So I could just do head of the oil data set, and it gives me the first 6 rows. All right, so let's say that you want to specify some columns to look at. Well, how would I modify that previous code? Well, I could do oil data, and this time I don't want to specify any rows. I want all the rows. So I'm just going to do a comma and not specify any rows. And let's say I want to look at columns 1 through 2. I could just do 1:2 to tell it to go through columns 1 and 2. And notice that it gives me the first column, which is type, and the second column, which is treatment, but it left off that third column, which has my oil data in it. All right, if I wanted to specify the first 5 rows and the first 2 columns, I think you're getting the hang of this at this point. So rows 1 through 5, columns 1 through 2, and my square brackets, and boom. I've got the first 5 rows of the first 2 columns. All right, so now you know how to refer to just portions of your matrix, of your data set. So now let's talk about how we refer to a whole column or a list of data within your matrix. So remember that our matrix look like that. So we have 3 columns. The first column is called type, and it has categorical data in it. The second column is called treatment, TRT, and it has categorical data in it. And the third column is called oil and is quantitative. It has numbers in it. So if I just want to do look at the oil column, I can type the name of the data set and then $, the name of the column. And it will return just the oil column to me. Now notice what happens. I'm going to up arrow, and I'm just going to put a lowercase I when I refer to that column name. It's telling me that has nothing in it because R is very specific to capitals and non-capitalized letters. So make sure that you're calling in your column name exactly as it appears in your data set. Otherwise, R won't recognize it, and you'll get error messages. All right, so now we can refer to any of our columns of data of the oil data set by using the name of the object, $, the name of the column. And you can see that I pulled up the treatment, and I can also pull the type. All right, now let's talk about our summary function. If I do summary of oil data, it's going to give me the summary of each column of my matrix, which is really handy at times. Now, notice what it does differently for my quantitative column, oil. It gives what I was used to in the last video, because that's a quantitative list of numbers. It gives me the 5-number summary and the mean. But look what it gives for my 2 categorical columns of data. It's just giving me a summary of how often each category appears. So it's telling me that for type, M appears 6 times and WT appears 6 times. And for treatment, a C appears 6 times and an E appears 6 times. These are actually abbreviations for mutated and wild type, control, and experiment. So lots of times you'll have whole words. Here we just have letters. All right. So now let's say that I want to refer to these individual lines of data, and I want the summary of the oil data $, treatment column. I think you can agree with me that's an awful lot to type just to get the summary of what's in that treatment column. Lots of times we'll be referring to multiple column names within a line of code, and I don't want to have to type the name of the object with the $ every time I'm referring to a column. So what I can do is I can attach my data set. So I'm going to attach oil data, and what that does is it allows me to refer to the column name just by the column name. So now I can just type TRT and it automatically knows that I'm working with the object oil data because I've attached that one. Now before you attach another data set, you might want to use the detach function and detach oil data, but most of the times you don't have to worry about that in our class examples. One last way to refer to a column of data is to refer to it by what number column it is. So if I do oil data, square bracket, column 1, so square bracket, don't specify the row, comma 1, specify the column, what's it going to give me? Well, my first column was type, so it's going to return those WTs and Ms to me. So you can refer to your column by typing in the name of the object, $, the name of the column, or the name of the object, comma, the column number in square brackets, or attach your object and then directly refer to the column name. All right, so we'll be using all 3 of those this semester, so make sure you keep them all in your repertoire, but most of the time I'll attach the data set and just refer to the column name directly. All right, so now let's say that you want to only work with a subset of your data. Well, one easy way to do that is to use the subset function. So let's say that I want to only refer to the rows that, my data set such that the type column has WT in it. So I want to just name a new object, and I'm just going to call it oil WT. That's just the name that I'm going to use. I'm going to use my less than dash, and I'm going to use the subset function. So if I type subset, it's going to first want to know, what do I want to subset? Well, I want to subset my oil data object. And then I have to tell it what I want to subset on. So I want it to subset on the first column of oil data being a WT. So notice you have to put 2 equal signs there when you're defining something. And I have to use the quotes because it's a categorical list of numbers. It's not one of my list of letters or words. It's not one of my numerical data sets, numerical columns of data. And I'm going to close out my subset function. So now what do I have? If I look at oil WT, I can see that it only has the rows such that type is WT. So that's one nice way that you can work with subsets of your data. Now if I just want the mean of the oil column where for the WT, the wild type, then I can just do mean of oil WT, the oil column. Now, if I don't want to stop off and do a subset of the matrix first, if I just want to directly refer to only the oil entries such that the type is wild type and I want to do a mean, I can just do it directly all in one line of code. So I could do mean, and I want to do the mean of the oil column. I've already attached my data, so I should be able to refer to the oil column just by oil and not oil data $oil. And I'm going to use a square bracket for such that the type column equals WT, and close my square brackets and close my parentheses, and you can see that I can directly get the mean of the oil column for only the rows where the type equals WT. All right, I can also use other logical operators. Let's say I want the mean of the oil column where the type equals WT and the treatment equals control. Well, I'm going to up arrow, and I'm just going to edit that last line of code. I want the mean of the oil column such that type equals WT and treatment equals C. And it will only look at the rows where the type is WT and the treatment is C, and it'll take the mean of those observations for me. I could do an OR, and that's just the vertical slash on your keyboard. And there are lots of other logical operators which are listed on your help page. Okay, so good luck starting to work with R, and we'll make other videos as they become necessary.